The concept of living a boring life is interesting to me, no pun intended, because if I'm living a boring life, okay, let me start here. Let me start with the definition of, I guess, what boring and interesting are. Boring and interesting are literally the opposites of one another. So if the definition of interesting is something that holds or catches your attention, then boring is something that does not hold or catch your attention. And usually, whenever we find something boring, it is from an outside looking in perspective. We are looking at something and we are determining that, no, this isn't really capturing my attention. This isn't really sparking any interest within me. But when it comes to finding your own life boring or not interesting, I feel like you can only do that if you have mentally detached yourself from the life you live. You are no longer mentally engaged with the life you're living because you have, in a way, stepped outside of yourself and you are watching yourself on autopilot. Because when you think about it, the only way that you can not be engaged in what you're doing mentally or not really pay attention to what you're doing, but still be doing it, is if you're on autopilot. So you're pretty much living a life of habits that you've built over the years, and maybe at some point you realize, I don't like these habits. I'm not satisfied with these habits, because you no longer resonate with it, and you have stepped outside of it and realized you're not happy because you started to reflect inwards. Your life isn't engaging to you, and it doesn't hold your attention because you don't pay attention and you don't engage with your life. Probably why your mind wanders when you do things. I'm eating, but I need to watch something while I eat, because eating is such an automatic process to me that my brain does it without me having to think about it. So now my brain feels idle every time I'm doing something. So I have a bunch of free space, or I guess free attention, waiting to be kept while I do whatever I do throughout my life. So I think the way to live an interesting life is to first be more mindful of the life you're living and start to actually think about it. Mindfulness is literally the process of being aware of your thoughts without judgment, being aware of the moment without judgment. I'm breathing right now. I'm standing barefoot with socks on the carpet. How does the carpet feel? The carpet feels soft. What am I going to eat tomorrow? Why did my mind go from thinking about socks to thinking about food? I don't know, but I'm not going to judge myself. That's literally the process of mindfulness, just being aware and being in the moment. And I think the challenge to that is, or the challenge to living a boring life, is to be mentally engaged with your life. And for a while, I was stuck on this idea of, to live an interesting life, I have to have friends. I gotta go out every weekend. I gotta have a nice car. I gotta be out in the mix. I have to have an aesthetically pleasing room. And I have to, just adding things to my life that I didn't have. I thought that was the answer to making my life more interesting, when in reality, the only reason why that would make my life more interesting is because it would be something new. It would be something new for my mind to fixate on. But guess what? When you get used to something and it starts to become automatic and you start to run on autopilot again, you start feeling like it's boring all over again. So it's not so much about what you have or what you do. I think it's more so about how you think about what you do and being mentally engaged in the life that you're living, no matter what that looks like. And then, of course, there is benefits to being in new environments and acquiring new things. But when you neglect to be mindful of the life you live, I feel like you end up in the same cycle of always wanting the new next trendy thing and keeping up with the Joneses because you're bored with what you already have and what you're already doing. So I say that to say, maybe try mindfulness as a cure to the life that you think is so boring. Like maybe try to live your life. I guess being mindful is kind of like looking into your life from an outside perspective, but it's still you. I'm eating right now. What am I eating? I wonder what I look like when I'm eating. What does my form look like when I'm sitting? Have you ever been sitting with bad form and you realized it and you sat up straight? That's an example of being mentally engaged. You realize something because you thought about it. So I think in the little things throughout your life, you can become more interested and live a life that's not boring simply by just thinking about it, being more mindful. That's just what I'm trying to say. I'm kind of rambling now, but I've been trying to figure out how to articulate this for the longest, and I finally decided to just put it in a voice memo, and I'm gonna throw it in a YouTube video and upload it because I've been feeling like my life is so boring and I don't know what to post on YouTube anymore because I don't live the interesting lifestyle where I live with like with this luxury apartment, and I do the behind the scenes of an influencer where I'm going out taking pictures, and like that stuff looks interesting to me because I'm not engaged in my own life and what I do have and where I am right now. And those things are aspirational, but it doesn't mean that the life that I live is boring because I don't have it. The life that I live is boring because I'm not mentally engaged with what I'm doing. I'm running on autopilot and I'm not happy with it. And that's why I find it boring. But if I was mentally engaged with the life I lived and I put more attention to detail and I found the things that I'm not satisfied with, found the autopilot routines that I'm not happy with, and I changed them, I can live an interesting life, even with living at my mom's house, you know what I mean? Or even if I don't have a following on social media, I can still be interesting and live an interesting life. So hopefully this helped any of you. Hopefully this made sense. This is kind of just a random thing that I wanted to talk about and post.